Hello everyone, welcome to the How to Build a Gaming PC Build 2020 Step by Step by Newb Computer Build. Before we build, we want to kind of put a plan into place. So for example, today, say you have $1,000 and you want to try and maximize your performance in a certain game at a certain resolution because you're going to be using a monitor at say 1080p or 1440p. Or 1080p at a high frequency at 144 hertz. So you need to get, so you want to maximize that and get as many frames per second as you possibly can. What you want to do is kind of plan your gaming PC build out before buying the hardware. That goes without being said. So before doing that, choose a budget and then choose your hardware. My suggestion is to kind of go with plan a kind of a CPU and GPU combination that makes sense with your budget to get this and to maximize your performance within that. What you can do to kind of do that is search gaming benchmarks for X games, so whatever game you play, kind of Google that, search YouTube for videos that are benchmarking that, and then kind of determine the CPU and GPU you want or need based on that, and then kind of build your PC build around that. To fit within your budget. You can go to places like PC Part Picker, Tom's Hardware Forums, Reddit, or your good friends over here at Newb Computer Build to kind of get a feel for what works for you and what's compatible if you're not too familiar with the hardware. Then plan your build to kind of fit within that. So, what do you need to build a gaming PC build? Today we're going to be using the following hardware to build our build. This is a CPU we have is the AMD Ryzen 7 3700X. The cooler we're going to use with that CPU is the Wraith cooler that comes with the Ryzen CPU. It comes in the box. It's an air cooler. The motherboard we're going to use is an MSI Tomahawk Max B450 motherboard. The GPU, the graphics card, is a Gigabyte Radeon 5700. The memory we're going to use is a Ballistics Elite gaming memory. 16 gigabyte kit, 4000 megahertz. This is a very high-end memory, so if you're going to go with a build similar to this, you don't really need to go that high, but it is a really good kit of memory. Storage we have is a Crucial P1 1 terabyte M.2 NVMe solid state drive, so a very fast kind of smaller NVMe drive of the M.2 form factor, so the size. And then the case we're going to use is the Corsair Carbide 175 RGB. And then to power it all, we have a power supply unit that we're using, and we're using the EVGA 750 watt Supernova 80 plus gold fully modular power supply. So, with that being said, what you need to build your gaming PC build, you need a CPU, and then you need a cooler to cool your CPU. If one isn't included with your CPU, you might need to look up a compatible cooler to go with the one that you're buying. So please check that your CPU either comes with the cooler or find one that is compatible. Then you'll need a graphics card. Like I said before, you want to pair your CPU and graphics card so that they maximize your performance in your task that you're wanting to accomplish. So in this case, gaming or gaming in a specific game. Then you want to make sure you purchase a motherboard that is compatible with your CPU. That means you need to look up the socket type for your CPU. In this case, our socket type is an AM4, which fits AM4 socket compatible motherboards. Then within each of those unique chipsets for your motherboard, this is where it gets a little bit confusing, but essentially a chipset is unique to your CPU and controls the communication between your processor and any external devices. Sounds simple? So today we're using a B450 chipset, which is essentially compatible with the first generation Ryzen processors, the second, and now the third, which is what we're using today. And sometimes with the third generation Ryzen CPUs, you need a BIOS update, which is super easy with these particular motherboards, but the one that we're using today comes fully compatible. Essentially, each chipset comes with unique functionalities, so feel free to Google each individual one. In this case, the Ryzen chipsets available are from the top of the line to the lower end are X570, X470, or B450, X370, B350, and A320, and so on. So next, what we want to do is choose our storage. So that's what's going to store all of your hardware. Sorry, the storage is a hardware that will essentially store all your software, like your games and the operating system and so on. These days, try to go with an M.2 drive or at least an SSD, like a SATA solid state drive. And if you want to kind of learn more about why you want to choose an SSD or a NVMe M.2 drive, you can go to the site at newbcomputerbuild.com where we kind of have an article where we do have an article that discusses why SSD speed matters for gaming and how to choose the right one. Then base your storage on how much you think you already use, or at least choose, we recommend here at least 256 gigabytes and above, so you can install your operating system and then your most played games and your most used software. Then what you want to do is choose your memory. So RAM, memory, or RAM equals random access memory. This could get some slack, but 8 gigabytes has been the norm for many, many years, and I would say you can still get away with it. But if possible, in this range, kind of this budget range or in the hardware range that we're using today, 16 gigabyte works, and it's becoming more affordable. Currently, the standard is a dual channel kit of DDR4, dual channel memory, so 2 sticks. So if you want 16 gigabytes, you want 2 sticks of 8 gigabyte memory sticks, or 4 gigabytes for 8 gigabytes of total memory, and so on. And then you want to try for a higher operating frequency if possible. Otherwise, if you're leaning on the budget side of PC building, a more affordable kit of DDR4 kit should do the trick. Memory can get more complicated, so do look this up if you are more interested. Then, what you'll need is a power supply. Many people do get confused here. I mean, basically this comes down to, do you have enough watts to run your PC, and is my power supply reputable and efficient? So to keep this easy, you could ask around to see how much power you need, or you can use the available calculators such as the build. There's one built in at PC Part Picker, and then here at Newb Computer Build, we try to choose a little above what we need just in case you have upgrades in the future. And then if you're more picky, you can get the more expensive power supplies. You can get higher efficiency ones, so that ones that use power more efficiently, or you can get ones that are modular, so the cords, all the cables you can unplug them. So if you don't need a particular cord, you can unplug it and put it in the box for later. And then in terms of efficiency, the lower end efficiency is typically rated up bronze, and you can go up to gold or even platinum or even titanium being the highest efficiency. Next, you want to choose a case. A case basically encapsulates everything, put all your hardware into it, and then you typically can connect fans and so on and so forth, and it's used to power on and off your PC and reset. But this is where because cases can be purely aesthetic, it sometimes comes down to the individual user with how you want your overall PC, gaming PC to look. So although there are cases of higher quality, ones that have better airflow, I would say mainly it does come down to the user's choice. But you do want to choose a case that fits your build. So what you'll typically want to do is look at your motherboard and your motherboard size, and your motherboard size is usually based on ATX or micro ATX or micro ITX, for example. Those are all different form factors of a motherboard or sizing of a motherboard. A typical motherboard is ATX size, so you want to get a mid-tower gaming PC case to fit that. And then if you want a smaller form factor build, you can get a micro ATX motherboard, for example, and then get a smaller case to fit that, which some people like to do. And then just choose the style of the case that you want, and it fits within your budget. Easy peasy. That's as easy as it gets. And these days you can go with a fancier case that adds RGB lighting or anything that you kind of want to showcase your PC. So now let's get on to the building. What we're going to do is we're going to start with the motherboard, and we're going to install the CPU into its socket. So what we need is to set the motherboard on a non-conductive surface. For me, it's this desk here, so I'm going to just put this aside. And also the tools that we're going to use are this. So you can see don't stand on carpet. I'm standing on a plastic mat here, so it's non-conductive as well. But the tools that we need, I just have a couple precision screwdriver sets that I use. Typically does nothing too fancy. You can literally get this at the dollar store. And then we have this slightly fancier one just in case I need it, but I don't think I will. I just have some sort of Phillips on the case, and then some other smaller screws throughout. So let's set these aside for now. Now for the motherboard, we have the B450 Tomahawk Max. We're just going to open it up and take it out of the case. So here we have the board. You can see everything's in place. We're going to install the CPU into the CPU socket here in just 1 second. So now that we have the motherboard out, what we want to do now is take the CPU out and seat it right there. With the Ryzen 3700X. Then the instructions. You might want to read these before getting started, but this is a step-by-step video. So what we're going to do is we'll show you how to seat it in and make sure it's seated. We'll lock it into place, and then we'll move on to the next step. So now what we're going to do is seat the processor. So what you want to do is align it. There's a triangle here, and then there's a triangle on the other side here, which I'll show you in a second. You want to align it there. Also, there's these 4 little rectangular things. I'll show you closer. So now that we have a closer look, I'll show you how to align. We're going to drop the processor into the socket. So here's the processor. On the back side, you can see right here, this little triangle. This is going to align with the little triangle on this side here. Easy as that. So we'll drop it in this way. Another way we can do it with this motherboard is that you have these 4 rectangular pieces. On the bottom you can see that it's obviously oriented this way, and the top is here. So before we drop it in, we need to unlock it. Now it's raised, and now we drop it in. Like that. Kind of just falls into place. Just do it really lightly so you don't bend any of the pins. Then you just pull down on this arm here and lock her into place. Easy as that. So now we're going to install the memory modules. On this motherboard here, it's a dual channel memory setup. It specifies that we put it in the DIMM A2, and then the one 2 over from that, which is this one here. So we'll flip this over, kind of give you a better view. Pop them down, tabs out. So now it's open for the memory. So now we'll pop the memory out and pop it in. So now when installing the memory modules, you'll see that there's this little notch here. A couple notches on the side where the little module or little notches will clip into to lock it into place. So kind of when you're putting it in, align this notch up to the notch on here. So you can kind of see here, that notch right there. Put it in like that, seated, and push down. Click, click. Put the other one in, line it up, and push down. Easy as that. Alrighty, we're going to install the AMD CPU cooler now. This bad boy here. However, I've taken this out once, don't do what I did. It comes with pre-applied thermal paste. You can see my little fingerprint right there. It'll still be good, but don't take off the protective plastic and touch it like I did. Anyways, we're gonna pop that off. And now we're gonna seat it on top of the processor. Before we do so, it has these 2 arm brackets on this particular motherboard. They come pre-installed. They have little clips underneath. So you want to align these side metal pieces so that they clip on there, and we'll pull the lever so it pulls tight. However, you want to keep in mind that there's a CPU fan header here. So you want to find the CPU fan header on your motherboard. The one on this board, you can see there's a header here. This is system fan though. There's a the CPU one is over here. So it's a 4-pin header right here. So I'm going to install it this way so that this is closer to the CPU fan. So I'm just going to move the camera so that you can see this side as well. Zoom in there. Now you can see that both the sides are in. Little lever here. Just going to pull on that so it pulls it down nice and tight. Holy, that's tight. A little tight, so a little bit of pressure down. That's in solid. Now we have the CPU header fan to plug in, which goes in over here. So you can see the groove on the back here. You line that up with the header down here. Make sure that's nice and snug. I'm going to tuck this in kind of like that. So that's kind of out of the way. So now you can see plug it in right there. It should work. So now we have the CPU cooler installed. Beautiful. But the Ryzen CPUs come with these two cords. It's for the RGB functionality of the cooler. One is an RGB header. If your motherboard supports it, you can use this one. It's a 4-pin, and that other end, also a 4-pin, this connects directly into the cooler. Since this motherboard in particular doesn't have a port for this, we're not going to use this one. But rather, we're going to opt for the USB header one, which will plug into a USB header port on the motherboard, and then this end will plug directly into the cooler. Alright, now we have the cord all untangled. This end is a 3-pin, kind of see there, and on the side of the cooler here, there's 2 rubber ports. You want to pull, I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. A little rubber thing comes off, and we want to plug this little itty bitty cord into this port right here. Sorry, my bad. We're going to reverse. This motherboard does have RGB headers, so we're not going to use the USB one as to take up a USB port. We're going to use this RGB 4-pin header. So we're just going to undo this. So one end will go into the cooler here. So we'll turn this around. So I accidentally took out the 3-pin one right there. We'll put that one back in to protect it. Hopefully find the right way to do it. There we go. Just shove it in there. Alright. So now I'm going to take this, put it into the RGB header. This, there's an arrow right there. Slides right on in. Now we got a bit of loose cord here. I don't really like that, but that's what I might do. Is place that kind of like this. Actually, hang on. What might I do with that? Cable management. 101, right? Just wrapped around the CPU cooler. I want it by the RAM. So we're gonna go this way. And just kind of shove her down there. Kind of like so for now. Alrighty. So now that we have the motherboard kind of set up with the RAM, memory on this side, the CPU, the cooler, I'm gonna just set it aside for now. Start with the case. Bring this case forward. We have the 175R Corsair. I'm going to take the tempered glass off the side. I'm going to do a little bit of case prep for the impending arrival of our motherboard. I mean, we could at this point test the whole system out. We could plug in the graphics card, etc. However, I wanted to install it right into the case first, as to save time on my end. However, if you want to test it out, that's up to you. This is the route I'm taking, and I don't recommend this for everybody. But in this case, we have the instructions, and then we have all of the tools, some cable management zip ties, and all the screws needed for the case. Great, now we have the case. We're going to flip it upside down, continue from there. Alright, now we're going to install the motherboard into the case. This one's fairly standard. It's a Corsair, it's a Corsair 175R. It has the motherboard standoffs, which are these little screws that screw into the case that lift the motherboard just a fraction of a width off of the case so that there's room underneath. This case comes with them pre-installed. I remember years ago you would try and figure out the configuration based on screwing them all in. However, this one comes pre-installed. What we have today is a typical ATX size case. So what we need to do is align these little screw holes. So you can see there, 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 with the standoffs, and then screw it down. So I'm going to, if you look down there, there's the two screws here and the one screw there. And we're just going to drop it down, move these little cords out of the way, kind of align it with those screws, kind of like so. Great. Once you have them lined up, we'll screw it down. So now what we have, these little screws that need to go into the motherboard screw holes here. There's 8 of them. So the ones on this one have the rounded head. Goes with some washers. Put those on the, oops. Put those on the screws there. And now go around the whole board and screw it down. Starting with this one here. Boom. Make sure the holes are. Boom. They're all aligned. Screw them down. Alright, so now that we have all the motherboard standoffs in place, motherboard secure, we're going to put in the M2 drive that we have here today. This is a Crucial P1 NVMe M.2 solid state drive. Alright, as you can see, it's not like your typical hard drive. It's not this big bulky thing. It's not even like a SATA SSD drive, which is about this big. It's this little stick. Some call it a gum stick for these M2 drives. This is the Crucial P1 M2 drive with 1 terabyte worth of space. What we're going to do is pop it out of here. Literally, this is what it is. It's this big, not that big. And it comes with super fast read-write speeds when compared to a SATA SSD. So this motherboard in particular has one M.2 drive slot, so we're going to use it with the Crucial P1. All right, so you can see it's right here, right there. So we need to align the slot up with the hole. Just slide it on in, like so. Boom, click in. But you can kind of see pops up like that. That's why we have this little screw here that came with the motherboard. So it's the M.2 screw. So we need to undo this, screw it in. Comes with one, so we have to be a little careful to not lose it. Alrighty. So you can see here, this little curve there. What we're gonna do is take this little stand off, which is meant for a longer drive. We're gonna replace it. You know, I should have done this before putting the drive in, but we're gonna do it with it in, because that's just how we are. Boom. Now, I'm gonna take this mini little screw, put the drive down, line it up, and put it. Oh man, it's so frustrating. All right. Oh no. All right. Let's just see if we can get it on the screwdriver first. Kind of like so. Put it down. Screw it into place. Now there is our storage. Seriously, it just takes up this amount of space. Doesn't require an external power supply connector like the SATA ones, and it's faster, directly connected to the motherboard. So Crucial P1, definitely recommend it, as it is an affordable option into the M2 lineup, M2 drives, solid state drives. There you go. All right, so now what we're going to do is install the power supply in the back of the 175R. You can see in here, it goes here, back of it goes here. Can't really squeeze it in as it is here, so I might need to take out these hard drive cages. And so I just need to take this screw out. And then what we'll do is we have this one here, it's a modular cage. I might need to take all the cords out, but essentially it'll just slide right on in there. And then we'll have the cords, just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to take the whole case out. Slide the cage out of there. I will need this because I do have a couple with some 4 terabyte HDDs that I can put in there that I have a lot of media on. So I just need to, I will need to put that back in. So we're going to pop this baby in here, kind of like so. Slide it to the back. Just going to get all these cords out of the way. And then we're going to screw it into the back of the case. Now I'm kind of doing this a little bit messy because I have all those cords attached to the power supply. However, if you don't have modular power supply, that will be the case anyways. So now we're at the back of the case right here. So we're going to line up the holes in the back of the power. This is the power supply right here. And we're just going to screw it in. So now what I'm going to do is a little bit of cable management, but get the cables we need on the front end of the case. I'm just taking these zip ties that I had on these cords here. So let's just get a little bit organized and I'll show you what we need inside the case. Alrighty. Okay, so we have these cables here. These are the ones, we'll need these ones inside on the other end of this case for the motherboard. Here we have, it literally says MB. It's motherboard. This will plug to be the main power source for the motherboard. So we're going to probably go to, let's see if I can adjust this. You'll see when we turn it around, but we're going to go in through here because on the other side, that's where this plug is. So we're going to stick that in there, just through there, so that it's going straight up. Then we have these other cords here. It says VGA. Literally, not literally, I mean, we'll need these two for our graphics card, our RX 5700. So we're gonna squeeze those up here as well and put them in there as well. Because the PCI port is on the other side of this as well. And we have these SATA connectors for some hard drives or SSDs, solid state drives. That'll power those. On the back of the case here, but on the front of the case, we'll also need the CPU power. Kind of see it there. If I can focus, there we go. This one, these two 4-pin cords. So what we do, again, on the front, through the same hole. And that's just because it'll keep things nice and tidy later on. All right, one thing I just noticed with the 175R case, it's a little bit annoying, but also a positive on their side because they created this case pretty intuitively. Intuitively as in it's a minimalist case that has a little room for movement, I suppose. But anyways, this is an HDD cage that we need to, you can fit 2 in there. Yeah, total 2. You just pinch these out and you can slide the drive out. However, I just unscrewed that, took 4 screws to get it out. And it's not enough room, there's not a whole lot of room in here with these cables. So the power supply is here now, and the cables jet out just a bit because the plugs need to go into the back. And then this needs to go in, and you really need to shove it in to get it back in there. That being said, I will be putting, if you don't have HDDs, honestly, you can probably just leave this out and leave a little breathing room in there. All right, guys, so we're on the other side of the case now. You can see the middle hole there, the middle gasket. We've sent some wires through that we need. What we're gonna start off with is plugging in the CPU power. So, see, 2 4-pins. Goes into the CPU power up here, right by the cooler, right up there. All right. We're gonna pull as much as possible. And just snugly snap her in. Both ends snapped in, nice and tight. Now we have this cord here. I want to see if I can tuck it. Ideally, it's a little bit out of the way. Oh. There we go. Nice and tight. Now, with the motherboard one here, goes here. Pretty simple. I'm gonna put that in a little bit more that way. Go like this. And squeeze it right in. Like. Kind of see that, right? Like so. A little bit of a bigger plug, so there we go. It's in. There's a little clip at the back that clips in snug. And you've got it right. Perfect. Now, we don't have the graphics card in here yet, so we're not going to use this the VGA power, but when we do so, it'll go here in the PCI 3 slot. And I'm just going to, whoopsie, go under this cord just to make it a little more clean. All right, so now what we're going to do is connect the case cords to the motherboard. These are the ones that control certain things on the case. So for example, we have the audio cord here. We have USB 3 connection, so that at the top of the case we can have the ports work through USB 3. Here we have the case fan connector, which we have the case fan connector, which we have one 120 millimeter fan on the front, which is an RGB fan. So it also has this RGB header that we need to connect, and then we have the case reset buttons, the power and reset buttons, and LED lights or indicators that we need to connect as well. So what we'll start off with is on the left. So on the motherboard here, I'm going to zoom in a bit, see if you can see. On the very left here we have, this is the audio connection there. And so what we're going to do is, here we go, connect the audio on there and just line up the cords, which go like this, with the audio facing up. And push it in. Nice and snug. The next one, I think what we'll do is, let's just flip these over. So you can see in the manual here, on this particular board, the power LED and power switch. So we have these cords here. So you can see power LED, positive, negative, and then power reset and power. These are the power buttons. So number one, positive on the left, negative on the right. So we'll go positive here on the left, and then connect. These are a little finicky sometimes. That one in there. There we go. Okay, that's that. Now what we're going to do is we will move on to the USB 3. So let's just sneak these under here. So stick it in this way, like this, and just squeeze her in there, nice and tight. There we go. Now, the final two. We have the RGB header here on this motherboard. Actually, it's right here on the left. You can see right there. So we'll plug this one in there. Find the arrow. I think it's in there. And now we have this fan. And we will plug it into, where's the next? Well, we can do the one over here. Actually, here, let me zoom out. We can do this fan up here. So this is a 3-pin fan cord. So there's 4 pins there. So make sure you put them on the bottom 3. And you can see kind of by the groove on the cord itself. So actually, maybe I'll go to I want to go to the top just to make this cord a little more tight. I went up here, this fan header there. All right, with that out of the way, super exciting part now. We're going to install the graphics card. So I'm going to pull it out, stick it into the PCI 3 port. All right, first things first, we're going to take out the cage there for the PCI card. It's the top one. Little screw on this case. So pop that out. Easy peasy. Slides right on out, like so. I'm gonna seat it like so. Push down, snaps right on in. So it takes up 2 of these ports in the back, so it's pretty stable considering. So we're gonna take one of those screws, 2 of those screws, we'll screw it in on the edge of the case. So now we got the card in, it's stable. We're going to now, assuming we have our cables in the right spot in here, put that there, out of the way. We're going to need all of these here, these VGA connectors, and we're going to snap them all into place. So we'll swap these around. There we go. Perfect. And that will power the card. So we have the card in place. It's fine and dandy, except I don't like, it doesn't really have a heat shield on the other side. Kind of one of those reference cards. It has the blower fan right here. Leaves this kind of exposed. To me, that means that there's going to be dust that'll settle here, so maybe I'll get a cover for that at some point in time, but it's okay. Looks nice. So we're about 90% of the way there. 95%, sorry, maybe. We're going to put on the input out shield, this bad boy here. This will go on to the connectors on the back of the motherboard. So now what we're going to do is put it back together. We are good to go. So we'll get the glass, tap the glass back on there. So these are all hand screw in little thumb screws. I'm going to install an SSD into this case. So took the drive cage off. There, we got it kind of screwed in there. Use this other SATA cable. Yeah. Use this other cable, it's a little more snug. Then we're going to power it up with this. There we go, like so. And then we'll screw it back in. Boom. And screw it in like so. So, now you can see the Crucial MX500 like that. And then on the other side, we're going to put the same cables through to, we're going to go through the bottom. That. So one thing with Corsair 175R I found is that it is snug. Okay, so it's stuck. There we are. Alright, so now we have the moment of truth. Get it all plugged in. Does it start? So it's booting up. Got lights on the fan there. Lights behind the board. It's good. Front Corsair lit. Good. Now it's really about, do we get a display? Great. Ryzen 7 3700X. Gigs of memory. Yeah, good. Seems to be all booting up. All right, so now we're going to install Windows.